Is there a better way to solve critical reasoning questions? Well, I think so. And there are some tricks that I use for CR questions, and I believe that these can also help you in your own preparation. So let's discuss a few critical reasoning questions and let's find out how we can best tackle them. Hi, this is Shupriyo. So the critical reasoning questions, whenever you are trying to solve these questions, sometimes we go ahead and see each question as a silo. So we don't really find the patterns. So what I want to teach you is that you have to somehow find an algorithmic way. Okay, so find an algorithmic way by which you can solve these questions. So if you can just remember these pointers that I tell you in this video, then hopefully these questions are going to become much easier for you to solve. And in the future as well, we might have some more sessions of critical reasoning. So I have only picked out few questions this session, and if you want more of these types of questions, please let me know in the comments and I'll definitely pick out more questions for you so that you can be benefited from these types of sessions. Now coming to the basic structure. So what is the basic structure of the critical reasoning question? So the first thing that is given to you, that is the argument, right? And this argument, this can be a paragraph, this can be a number of lines given to you, and within that argument itself there will be a conclusion. All right, so there is a conclusion within those arguments and there is some evidence in the same paragraph given towards that conclusion so that you can understand how that conclusion is actually becoming true. So that is what is given to you. Then you are asked a question. So there is a question over here that whether the conclusion is correct, whether the assumption is wrong, whether you can strengthen or you can weaken that conclusion, whatever it is. So that question is given to you, and then you have some options. Maybe 3 or 4 or 5 options are given to you, and you have to find out the correct answer towards this. So that is the exact structure of most of the critical reasoning questions. Some of them can be a little bit different, but most of them, at least 99%, they will be having the same structure. So if you can understand this structure and you can actually use it to your advantage, then it becomes much easier. Now reading speed is also something that is very difficult and very challenging for many people, because many people tell me that there are so many number of lines in these questions, especially in the mains. You have these long logical reasoning or the critical reasoning questions, and it becomes very challenging to read it. So sometimes what I tell these people is that you just scroll down and you find out the question. So there will be a paragraph over here, then a question over here, right? So find out that question. Once you can find out that question, it becomes much easier because you know what they are asking. And sometimes if the paragraph is too big, then you can also read the options. So if you read the options, then you have an idea about what the passage is talking about, and then you can go back to the passage and you can read. So essentially I feel that people who are actually good at RCs, they are going to be also good in the CR. So it is quite interesting that the RC and the CR, they are actually following quite a similar trajectory, but anyhow, that is what it is. And what you can do, like the algorithmic way that I am telling you, how you can actually solve these questions. So once I take you through the questions, it's going to be much easier to understand because doing is much better than the theory. But the theory, if you have to understand, the first thing that you have to always pick out in all of these questions is the conclusion. So always remember, if you cannot identify the conclusion, then you cannot solve this question. It is so very vital to solving these types of questions. So always look for the conclusion first, and I will show you how it can be hidden, because in many questions even you can have like implicit conclusions. The conclusion is not stated out, but it is inside the argument itself, and you have to just somehow pick it apart. So that is something that you have to be good at. Always identify the conclusion first. So if you can find out within this passage what the concluding thing is, then you can work your way backwards and you can always get to the answer. And as I told you, as you solve more and more questions, you are going to actually be benefited. You are going to actually understand how this actually works. So the next thing is the assumptions. Now whenever you have any conclusion, so for that conclusion to be true, there are many assumptions that are there in that paragraph that have to be true. So at least one assumption will be there which is not written out, but it is actually an implicit thing. So unless that assumption is true, that entire argument, it cannot be true, right? So what you can do, you have to find out those assumptions, because assumptions, sometimes what happens is some questions they will be asking you whether out of these 5, which is the assumption that has to be true for the conclusion assumption to be true. So how you are going to actually find out? You are going to try something that I call the negation. Okay, so assumption negation technique, what you do, whatever the passage is given, whatever the option is given, so say there are option A, B, C, D, E, right? So each option, if it is a little bit tricky option, if you are not able to understand whether it is actually an assumption or not, try to negate it. Try to actually find out the opposite of that kind of statement. So that statement will be given to you, right? So just try and reverse that statement, and you are going to see it in the questions when we are going to do it. But once you reverse it, if the reversed statement is also making it so that the argument stands, so this means that it cannot be an assumption, because if the assumption negation also does not destroy your argument, this means that that option is not an assumption. So that is how you are going to actually try and find out the right answer in those assumption questions. So that's about your assumptions, and then you have the strengthen and the weaken ones. So these two are very important types, the strengthen the argument and weaken the argument kinds of questions, and they are very much used in the CR questions. So what you are going to do for these types of options, whenever the option is given to you, they will be always giving you a cause and then an effect. Okay, so something, a cause, it is actually creating that effect. So what you have to do is you have to actually find out whether that effect can actually happen without the cause. If that is true, then your strengthening or the weakening that option, it is not correct. So you have to actually do it via some questions. So once you see the questions and you can just judge it by yourself, it is much easier. But this is what is actually essentially happening. The cause and the effect, you have to actually find out, establish the correct relationship. So if you can establish that relationship, then you can just say that this is the right answer. Otherwise that answer is not right. So you have some options given to you which will actually strengthen the conclusion, and other options given to you which will weaken it. So based on what kind of a question is given to you, you have to find out your answer. So this is all about the theory, and we can talk about theory all day long, but it's not going to help you to solve the questions. So let us see some questions. In fact, that will be the best way by which you can apply these theories and you can find out the right answer. So let's go to the questions. So let's move to the first question. So what is this question asking us? Let us read it. When people evade income taxes by not declaring taxable income, a vicious cycle results. Okay, so it's a vicious cycle. What is this cycle? Tax evasion forces lawmakers to raise income tax rates, which causes the tax burden on non-evading taxpayers to become heavier. This in turn encourages even more taxpayers to evade income taxes by hiding taxable income. So what they are basically saying is that because you have tax evasion, right? You have tax evasion, so a lot of people are not actually paying their taxes. So this actually reduces the revenue of the government. Then what the government does, the tax rates, they are actually increasing. So because they are increasing the tax rates, what's happening? The tax burden on the non-evading taxpayers. So all the nice taxpayers, whatever they are, so they are also forced to become tax evading taxpayers. So because of this, there is a vicious cycle, and this is why this vicious cycle is actually happening. So the question asks, the vicious cycle described above could not result unless which of the following were true. Now once you read this, what do you think? What type of question is this? You have to first understand what type of question this is. So this is actually asking you to find out the assumption. Okay, so what you are being asked over here is to find out what is the implicit assumption in this argument, so that that has to be true, so that this argument can actually hold. So that is what is being asked to you over here. And always, as I told you, that you have to find out the conclusion first. So what's the conclusion over here? Try and understand over here. Even in the very first line you can understand, when people evade income taxes by not declaring taxable income, a vicious cycle results. So here you have your exact conclusion. So the vicious cycle is happening because people are evading their income taxes. That is the essential conclusion, and all the other things that are being written over here, they are just explaining how this system is actually happening. So once you have identified this conclusion, then you can now work towards what is the kind of argument that has to be true, so that this conclusion is true. So that is what we are searching for in this question. Now, if we go ahead and see at the options, so we have to eliminate all the options and find out our correct answer. So the first option, an increase in tax rates tends to function as an incentive for taxpayers to try to increase their pre-tax incomes. Okay, so what does this say? This actually tells us that because your tax rates, they are actually going high, so what the taxpayers are doing, they are actually increasing their pre-tax income. So if their income, the pre-tax income, they are actually increasing, what will happen? Then they will be paying almost they will be paying a little bit more tax, but their ultimate net income will remain the same. So if this is true, then their net income, it actually remains true. So remember, in the assumption questions, what we have to do, we have to try, and if there is some kind of a complicated statement, then we have to negate it. So we have to find out the negative of this. So if this was not true, so if an increasing tax rates tends to function as an incentive, so if it was not an incentive, okay, if it was not an incentive to try and increase their pre-tax incomes, so what would happen? So even if this is not true, then also the vicious cycle will ensue, because see what will happen, even if they are not actually increasing their pre-tax incomes, if the tax rate is going up but they are not actually incentivized to increase their pre-tax incomes, so then also this vicious cycle can actually happen. Because what is actually happening, the tax evasion is happening because the tax rates, they are actually increasing. So this is not directly related to the thing that we actually need to prove. We are only needing to actually correlate this tax evasion and the tax rates. So the increase in tax rates and the pre-tax incomes, they are actually not that much relevant as well. So by negation also we see that even if this is true or false, it does not really matter. So we can actually neglect this one. So A is not our answer. So what is B saying? Some methods for detecting tax evaders and thus recovering some tax revenue lost through evasion bring in more than they cost, but their success rate varies from year to year. Okay, so this is quite interesting. So some methods for evading for detecting the tax evaders, they actually bring more tax revenue. So if they actually just think about it, think about what happens if this actually is true. So if this is true, that you have some methods for evading the tax evaders, then if those methods are actually working, then your tax revenue which was lost, the government can get back again. So this means that using this, the tax revenue can be actually got back by the government. But do we want that back? No, because our argument, it actually wants a vicious cycle. So think about it. If this is true, then this vicious cycle will not happen, because the tax revenue that was lost, the government is actually getting it back, right? So if this is true, then this entire vicious cycle will fall apart. So that is why this B is also not true. Okay, see, when lawmakers established income rates in order to generate a certain level of revenue, they do not allow adequately for revenue that will be lost through evasion. Okay, this is quite interesting, because now we are actually dealing with the tax rates as well, and also the tax evasions. See, both of these things were actually required for us in our argument. So what they are saying that they do not adequately allow for revenue that will be lost through evasion. So whenever they are setting their tax rates, they actually do not check whether the revenue will be adequately enough to get the extra revenue which will be lost through the evasion. So just try and negate this thing. So if this was not true, okay, so if they adequately allowed for that revenue which will be lost through evasion to actually be accounted for, so if this thing, it was not true, this means that the lawmakers, they are planning very well. So they know that some amount of money is going to be lost through evasion, and then they have planned so that that amount of money they can actually get back through the revenue, because by calculations they have actually set the tax rate. So if this was not true, then this vicious cycle will not happen, because the vicious cycle is only happening because the government is losing the revenue over here, right? So as we saw that government was losing revenue, so they are again increasing the tax rates, and then the non-evading taxpayers are also becoming tax evaders. So if this was not true, then the entire thing falls apart. So especially this argument, it has to be true. So if the lawmakers, they do not adequately plan for it, only then the vicious cycle can happen. So this is a probable answer. So
let's keep this. Now the next one, no one who routinely hides some taxable income can be induced by a lowering of tax rates to stop hiding such income unless fines for evaders are raised at the same time. So again, over here, you see, you are correlating again the fines for the evaders and also the lowering of the tax rates to stop evading such income unless fines. So this is actually not that much relevant to our entire thing. And also remember, if this was actually true, so if you could have some fines so that whatever the government is losing, they can actually get back. So if they are getting back that revenue, so the revenue, it is not actually impacted. So the vicious cycle cannot happen if this thing is true. So that is why this is also actually not true. Now the E, so taxpayers do not differ from each other with respect to the rate of taxation that will cause them to evade taxes. So if they do not differ with respect to the rate of taxation, what will happen? So this does not actually create a cycle. Why this does not create a cycle? Because see, if somebody says that okay, at 25% tax we are all going to give all our taxes, and whenever it goes to 26%, then nobody is going to give the tax, because everybody, they do not differ from each other. So this means that everybody behaves the same. So if everybody behaves the same, then you cannot have this kind of a cycle. You will never have a cycle, because either everybody will be giving the tax or nobody will be giving the tax. So that is why this thing is also not true. So we are only left with C, and this is our answer. So of course this was a little bit of a difficult question, but you see my thinking process. So you have to think like this so that you can solve these complicated critical reasoning questions. Moving on to question number 2. So this is actually quite an interesting question because see, in this question you will see that the conclusion, it is actually not stated matter of factly, like it is not explicitly stated what is the conclusion. And also the second thing which is quite interesting in this question is that if you know the history of these two countries, then you can easily solve this question. But even if you do not know the history, then also you can solve. So I'll show you like what exactly I'm talking about. So let's read it. The protests along Gaza's border with Israel, which turned violent with Israeli troops killing 18 Palestinians, were long in the making. Gaza, the 225 square kilometer strip of land where over 2 million people live, has been under an Israeli blockade for over a decade. Okay, so now we are seeing the violence. So this is the violence in this region, and we are also being told about the Israeli blockade. Fine. In recent years, Egypt has also joined the blockade, practically cutting off the strip from the rest of the world. Despite international calls and repeated warnings by rights groups, Israel has not eased its restrictions on the strip. It says that they are in place for security reasons. The ruling Hamas is designated a terrorist group by Israel. Okay, so which of the following statements show that the fault may lie with Palestine as well? So this is a very different kind of a question, because this is not a strengthen or a weaken kind of a question, but this is actually based on your conclusion. Alright, so the conclusion over here, which is not actually stated, is that it is maybe Israel which is actually at fault for all these things that are actually happening. So whatever violent protests are happening, whatever kind of problems that Gaza is facing because of the blockade and everything, so Israel is to blame. So this is the conclusion, the unstated conclusion. Now what is being asked over here is that you have to actually disprove the conclusion. So this type of questions also come where you are actually asked to just check whether the conclusion is actually true or not. So that is what you are being asked to do in this question. Okay, so that is why I said that the conclusion was not stated. So which of the following statements show that the fault may lie with Palestine as well? So your conclusion has to be falsified somehow. All right, number A, Israel could escape censure for the latest outbreak of violence in Gaza as well due to support from Trump. Alright, so this is again something that is quite irrelevant, right? Because we are talking about Trump, who is the American president, and why we are talking about the escape of the censure. So these kinds of things, it is not actually in line with our conclusion. Our conclusion is different. Our conclusion is about Gaza and what is happening over there. So it is not actually related to whatever Trump is doing or not doing. So this is out of the question. Number B, Gaza and West Bank are ruled by rival factions, Hamas and Fatah, and there have been no joint efforts to mitigate the suffering of Gaza's people. All right, now this is where the history thing comes in. If you know the history of these two countries, you know that the Gaza and the West Bank, they are actually parts of Palestine. So different parts, and they are actually ruled by different factions, the Hamas and the Fatah, and that is why there have been no joint efforts to mitigate the suffering of Gaza's people. So this means that Palestine is actually to blame because they have two rival factions and they are actually not taking care of their people. So if you know the history, then it is quite easy to see that B is your answer. All right, so anyhow, you cannot actually disprove the option number B. So even if you do not know the history that well, then also you are going to keep this option B. All right, so you are not going to say that this is not correct. All right, now let's see number C. The international community remains unresponsive when it comes to grave rights violations in this Mediterranean enclave. So what this says that the international community is not responding. Are we really talking about international community? No, we are only talking about Israel, and we are also talking about Palestine. So because of these two things that are related to our conclusion, this is totally unrelated. So we can actually cross out this one as well. A UN appointed a commission probing the 2009 Gaza war accused both Israel and Palestine militants of committing war crimes. Now this is a very, very interesting option over here. See, this says that Israel and Palestine, both of them may actually be blamed. So it can be either Israel or it can also be Palestine. Now see the question what you have been asked over here. You have been asked over here that which of the following statements show that the fault may lie with Palestine as well. So you are actually choosing an option where Palestine is to blame. So in this option, both Israel and Palestine are to blame. So that is why you have to actually eliminate it, because both of these countries are actually being blamed as per option number D. So option number D cannot be your answer. Option number E, most Gaza residents are refugees of the first Arab-Israeli war or their descendants. So this does not really prove anything, because they are descendants of the Arabs or whatever it is, the refugees. They are not actually impacting whether the conclusion is true or false. So you can actually ignore this one as well. The only thing that actually remains is option number B. So even if you know the history or you don't know, you are going to choose option number B, and that is your correct answer. So this is how you are going to eliminate the options and then arrive at the final right answer. Let's move to the next question. Okay, so this question is also quite interesting, and I feel like this question actually has a life lesson as well. Anyhow, let's first solve this question. Distressed by his own personal tragedies, the Roman philosopher Cicero once asked himself whether a wise person should try to achieve the Stoic ideal of complete emotionlessness. Cicero reasoned that however desirable the goal may be, a wise person could never attain it, since emotions are not simply irrational urges. Okay, so he's saying that emotions are not simply irrational urges. Okay, so it is not an irrational urge but something rational, right? So what he's saying, they are rather a product of one's own estimate of the goodness and badness of the events, people and actions one witnesses. So there is some logic involved. That is what he's saying, that the emotions, they are a result of some of the logic, and that is why the wise person can never attain it. So which is the following is an assumption required by Cicero's reasoning. So again, we have to first identify what is the conclusion over here. So what is the conclusion? Can you say? So this is the conclusion over here. A wise person could never attain it. So by it we mean complete emotionless. Actually the Stoic ideal of complete emotionlessness. So a wise person can never attain the Stoic ideal of complete emotionlessness. So that is the conclusion, and you have to actually strengthen this conclusion, because this is the assumption. So the assumption is something that is not stated and it has to be true so that the conclusion is true. All right, so we understand now what we have to do actually. So let us now find out what actually is going to happen over here. Now first understand that because the wise person can actually do all this, that is the estimation of goodness and badness of events, people and actions. So that is why, because the emotion is not actually irrational, that is why the wise person will always be judging it. So the wise person is actually judging. All right, so that is what the wise person is doing, judging, and that is why the complete detaching from all emotions is not possible for the wise person. So that is the essential argument over here. So let's see option number A. wise people inevitably evaluate at least some of the things they observe. Okay, this is very interesting. We have to keep this because this is actually what we are trying to say, that wise people, they are actually judging all the things, they are actually evaluating all of the things, and that is why because they are doing all of these things, so they can never attain this complete lack of emotions. So this has to be actually true so that the entire argument is true. So let us keep this. Let us not eliminate this option because this feels like the right answer. Okay, option number B, irrationality makes evaluation of what one observes impossible. Okay, so what is being actually said is that if it is irrational, then the evaluation is impossible. But do we really need to learn about these things? Is it actually relevant to our argument? No, because our argument is that the wise person is actually judging things, and so the wise person cannot be divorced from emotions. So where is irrationality coming in? The evaluation of what one observes impossible, irrationality. So this is actually not related to our conclusion. So this is not an assumption at all. See, wisdom precludes attempting to attain what one cannot. Okay, interesting. Wisdom precludes attempting. So this means that if you are wise, then you are prevented from attempting to attain what we cannot do. So wisdom, if you are wise, okay, if you are wise, then you are prevented from attaining. Okay, prevented from attempting. So you are not even attempting to actually try and get something. So this is a very thin line over here. Understand, we are actually saying that the wise person can never attain it. So it is impossible. So is it ever a question whether the wise person is trying to attempt it or whether it is prevented, whether he is prevented from attempting? No. So this is the slight difference over here, that this is the prevention from attempting to attain. Alright, so attempting to attain is not our argument. Our argument is actually whether the person will attain it or not. So that is why we are actually again eliminating this one. Number D, if evaluations are based only on reason, then they are inaccurate. Okay, so this actually, if you see it, that evaluations are based only on reason, then they are inaccurate. So this actually straight away, refutes our conclusion, because the conclusion says that we are all evaluating all of these things, and that is why we are having, we cannot be away from emotions, because the emotions are not irrational, so they are actually evaluated. So based on reason, if they are evaluated, then they are inaccurate. So this actually goes against our conclusion. So that is why we have to again eliminate this one. Then number E, a wise person will not evaluate what cannot be directly observed. So this means that the wise person is not going to evaluate whatever that person cannot see. But is the conclusion saying it? No, the conclusion is saying that the wise person is always evaluating all of these things, all the estimations of the goodness and the badness of the events, the people, the actions, etc. So because the wise person is actually trying to go and get all of these things, so this cannot be our answer. So this is also not an assumption that is required. So only assumption is this: the wise person is inevitably evaluating at least some of the things that he or she is actually observing. So we have our answer, and we also have a life lesson over here. So if you are keeping on evaluating things, then you cannot remove yourself from emotions. So if you have to control your emotions, you also have to somehow rationally think about goodness and not focus on the badness of events and people. So I feel like this was an interesting life lesson. So this is the answer, and if you have any questions about it, so let me know. I will definitely try and help you out if you have any gaps in understanding, but you understand how we are going to tackle these questions. And in the future sessions, if you want, we are going to have more of these kinds of questions, and you can actually see a few more examples of these things in play. So that's all for this session, and if you enjoyed it, please let me know. Please write me down in the comments, and I can make another future video for these CR questions, and it's going to also help you to find out some more unique questions that are going to be very, very useful for your mains examinations. So I hope that you learned something from this video and that it was beneficial to you. If you enjoyed it, please click on the like button and share it with your friends, and if you want to see more of this kind of content, please click on the subscribe button, and do not forget to click the bell icon so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.